Welcome back to The Real Story. Today we're introducing a brand new segment called The Real Story Debunks, where we cut through all the noise about issues, people, and organizations to highlight the truth. With so many media pundits these days promoting fake news and chasing sensationalism, it can be pretty tough to tell what the truth is about basically anything that you see and that you hear. And while we certainly don't have all the answers, we are dedicated to chasing the truth, no matter where it takes us, and bringing it to you, the viewers. So on that note, this whole segment is dedicated to helping everybody in this country debunk legacy media myths, misconceptions, and more. And that brings us to our first subject of study, Antifa. While legacy media has recently claimed that Antifa is just a figment of your imagination, we know that it's real. In fact, our next guest today can corroborate their existence. However, it's also important to clarify what Antifa really is, what they really do in this country, and for what they really stand. Now, according to mainstream definitions, Antifa is a loosely organized and decentralized political protest movement, comprising semi-autonomous groups that are affiliated by their militant opposition to fascism and extreme right-wing ideologies. Moreover, the word itself, Antifa, actually originated in Germany in the 1920s and 30s and belonged to a movement called the Anti-Fascist Action that opposed pro-Nazi paramilitary forces. And allegedly, again according to mainstream sources, Antifa consists of these loosely connected groups and doesn't really have this hierarchical leadership structure or even a chain of command. And some experts on the subject say the majority of their operations are non-violent. But we have to ask ourselves, is any of this really true? After all, their members have been very well documented for aggressive and violent actions, like, say, destroying property, doxing their political opponents, harassing people online, as well as burning, rioting, looting, and even physically harming people. And that brings us to today's next guest. He has seen them firsthand, documented their activity personally, and even drawn their ire directly. So without any further ado, joining us now is Terry Newsome, the president of the Illinois chapter of Parents Involved in Education, co-host of the Behind Enemy Lines podcast, and he is here to help us debunk the legacy media's lies about what Antifa is and how they operate. Terry, thank you for being here.
Hi. Thank you. Thanks, Riely. Thanks for having me on, and thank you for covering this subject. It's about time that we start pushing the truth about this organization to our public.
Yes, and I figured in light of the No King's Day protests, what I affectionately call the No Brains protests, we know that Antifa was present at some of them, and you've drawn their ire personally. In fact, I believe they have a bingo card or some kind of hit list with your face on it, Terry. So I wanted to get your unique insight into who they are, their background, and how they're organized and how they operate.
Yeah, with me personally, it started 4 years ago. I didn't know anything more about Antifa other than what the general public knows, and they aggressively started attacking me simply for speaking out against pornography in my children's school. I'm not against gay people. I'm not a racist, a bigot. As I learned more about Antifa, that is part of their playbook. Well, it's Antifa. It's a handbook for Antifa, right? But the same people are trying to deny that there's such a thing called Antifa. So as I was listening to the book, I'm like, oh, wow, this guy's describing exactly what was happening to me 4 years ago. They target us fascists just for even if we're passively having a voice. They want to take us out very, very early. And that's what happened to me. Another thing that's very disturbing about the left, and especially the mainstream media and the politicians on the left, to your point, they act like there's no such thing as Antifa, right? It's just an ideology. There's no organizational structure, right? Yes. It's decentralized. Well, all of that's true, but that doesn't mean there's not Antifa. All of that's true, and all of what they're saying reinforces the fact that they are a criminal enterprise. It is no different than organized crime or ISIS, right? So we'll do organized crime here in Chicago. I'm very familiar with myself. So in organized crime, are you familiar, anyone out there familiar with an org chart that the mafia or the mob or the outfit puts together? Do you really think they put together an org chart? No, it's crazy. That'll enable law enforcement to document the pecking order within the organizations. They're purposely decentralized on purpose, as well as for drug cartels. Matter of fact, drug cartels is even more decentralized. But in organized crime, they have what's called crews, right? They have different crews and they have different leaders of the crews, and they work up the pecking order. And if they weren't decentralized, then all they do is expose the people at the top to be more vulnerable to law enforcement, to snitches, to cooperating, right? So that's when the feds come together and they put together their own org chart, right? And then what was the last thing I'm thinking about here? Decentralized. Oh, the ideology.
Yes.
They say, oh, it's an ideology. Well, so is the Italian mafia and the Sicilians. And, when it first came to the United States, it's all of the things that they keep using as a justification to say, oh, there's no such thing as Antifa.
So
there is Antifa.
Well, so they're just organized enough to, act and go to America's cities. And there's some bigger questions about who funds them. Where do they get their supplies from? We know them, but we don't know exactly who's in it. So they're loosely organized enough to act still, but not organized enough for law enforcement to trace. Fair enough. That brings us, though, to their ultimate goal, not just to evade police officers, but when it comes to reshaping America's politics, attacking people, and I don't know enough about Antifa to know if literally every member of the organization is physically violent, but I do suspect, like any other group or organization in existence, Terry, they do have some overarching goal, something that motivates them to mobilize. What do you think that goal is?
Yeah, so first of all, it's a brainwashed ideology, especially with what's going on in the colleges, right? Another thing I want to clear up to people too, right? Like and people loosely say, "Oh, that's Antifa, that's Antifa." Everyone that we don't like is Antifa, right? And it's not the case. There's a lot of associates or wannabes or kids that try to have an identity. College students, they dress up like Antifa, right? There's like, for instance, in Chicago, and that story that came out today, last night from the Daily Mail. Dana Kennedy, about Jeremy and Jason Hammond. Those guys are full-time anarchists. They get paid. They're on the books. That's what they do. They go to prison, in and out, in and out. They're part of Anonymous. They are like the coordinators of the Chicago Antifa cell, right? And so they have access to the money. Do I have the receipts from Soros or nothing? No, but that's what these guys do full-time. When you go to events, like for instance, at the DNC last year, they had the whole baseball field full of professionally made signs. So many signs that there wasn't even enough people to pick up those signs that were left in the baseball field.
Wow.
That costs a lot of money, right? And you see the same faces at different events over the last 4 years, the same leadership. Then you might see younger kids coming in and out that are part of their organization that they reach out to. So when they come to Chicago for the No Kings protest, you've got Indivisible, you got Act Blue, Action Now Network, you got Antifa guys. They coordinate, they put maps together, they harass, they intimidate, and then they try to recruit younger people into their group, into their ideology. And they've done a really good job in Chicagoland to harass parents. I could not get anybody to support me 4 years ago when I blew up these posters from Genderqueer to show them to the school board and call them out. They were all scared. I could not get one father to hold a poster. This is before I got into this. I'm like, I'm not scared. Well, sure enough, look what happened, Riely. I still will never change what I'm doing because we are in a war. These people are the militant foot soldiers of the Democrat Party, without a doubt. And to further reinforce my assumption there, why does Jerry, what's it, Nadler?
Yes, Jerry
say,
Nadler.
oh, there's no such thing as Antifa. Why do these people aggressively defend the fact that there's no such thing Antifa when we know there's Antifa? They call themselves Antifa.
Yes.
Their shields have Antifa. Why are they saying that? There's a reason. They are doing the work of the Democrats.
That's interesting. I believe we have this soundbite. It's just funny to your point. So for years and years, people have been talking about this. These members of Antifa have identified themselves. And then all of a sudden, very mysteriously, you see cable news pundit after cable news pundit all coming out and just all of a sudden, at the exact same time, simultaneously saying, Antifa's not real, there is no such thing as Antifa. So I want to play this soundbite and then have you explain what's going on.
There's no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization. There is not an Antifa.
Like, I don't even know what Antifa is. There is no group.
It's not even like far-right groups like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. Compared to right-wing extremists, Antifa-linked violence is rare and limited.
It isn't an organization. It is in many ways mythology.
It's not like the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers, sort of defined terrorist organizations with leadership that leads violence.
What do you think about that, Terry?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up for two purposes, right? Two reasons. First and foremost, we know that they are lying, and in the media, they on the left, they share talking points with everybody, right? They're sharing the talking points to control the narrative to keep their people in place, the Antifa dirtbags, right? That's why they're trying to do it and continue the brainwashing. Isn't it funny how they reference the Proud Boys? Oh, we know they're not like the Proud Boys. Wait a minute. What are the Proud Boys? Oh, they're a decentralized group, right? They're decentralized. Do they have an org chart? No, they don't have an org chart. Are they? Oh yeah, their ideology. Oh, but they're terrorists, but Antifa's not, right? The only difference is that why they came after the Proud Boys so aggressively? I know, I'm called a Proud Boy wannabe. Those people who come and protect us, and right. The Proud Boys, the head of Enrique Tarrio's African-American and Puerto Rican, the head guy for the state of Illinois is from Mexico, right? So the left is lying. They aggressively went after the Proud Boys. Why? They didn't want to have somebody that would counter their foot soldiers. They don't want them to counter their foot soldiers. There's people that would want to go to rallies. Oh, we're not taking my mouth, because they would send the Antifa guys, right? And they'd attack and intimidate older MAGA people to not want to show up, to be scared, and it works in many cases.
Yes.
And then, for instance, at the DNC or over here, what I experienced again at the Broadview Ice Center is they fly people in, Riely. Yeah, I know, like they caught the Hammond brothers early on, right? Early on. And then you see different faces and even though they're in their black bloc or whatever, they're different shapes. Right? You just know.
I do. It's very strange, very concerning. I want more answers. So we'll have to put a pin in this for now, but we need to know who's behind these organizations, who's funding them, what is the recruitment process really like, and most importantly, how can we empower law enforcement to protect Americans from these really dark forces? I think that's what's really going on here. So we'll have to put a pin in this, Terry, because we're out of time.
Okay.
But
all right.
I'm sorry about that. I just want to say, though, thank you for clarifying what's going on.
No, thank you.
And thank you for being here. Coming up next, is biblically minded investing the key to saving America and the West? That's what our next guest today argues. More details about that argument after the break.